Our education is in crisis, and so it's essential that we reinvent. And I think there are pieces of what we're doing here that could be applied on a much larger scale.
The lacking in the education system, I guess, is the focus on happiness.
This pod, you know, it's interesting. It's a group of homeschool together. It's kind of like a mini school, which is nice, is if you have good people leading it.
At public school, you couldn't really just have personal reading time at the library. Like, people were having to read to you, but there wasn't really any personal reading.
First grade and half of second grade, I went to a charter school. I didn't really like it. It was not really my thing. I went with my older sister. So then I switched to homeschooling, and I've been doing that ever since. I prefer homeschooling a lot more, most likely because there's much less to do, and it's a different environment.
For a student to learn effectively, they need to, first the teacher needs to know where they're at and what their how much do they know and what's their learning style. And so then the teacher can incorporate different methods to reach those students.
In a public school setting, you have a large group of kids, you have one teacher and possibly assistant, and you're handling everything yourself. I think it would always be great to have more people, especially when you're working with children, and especially when you're working with children that have different needs, different backgrounds, and different situations. As we're teachers, we're here and we're expected to volunteer on top of what we're already doing, 10 to 12 hours outside of work in order to even just stay afloat in the classroom.
It definitely takes a certain amount of energy, you know, but I just really feel like children are our most precious resource. They're the future of our world, and I think that's so powerful. I think it's really important to support them with the skills they need going forward. and like finding your voice, like using technology, like working collaboratively, and finding the skills to work confidently, independently as well. And so I just think that's all so important that I find a lot of energy to do this on a daily basis.
I love pod, and I've never been to public school, but a few of my friends have, and they've told me it's nothing like pod, and I believe that full on. I love pod. Pod is life. Everyone here is so nice. Miss Lisa is the best teacher. The only days it's not very nice are really math, but you know, everyone's gotta do math. And public school probably has a lot more math. It's been so empowering for me because I went from 2nd grade to 6th grade math in 3 years, so with her great teaching, and it was amazing. No matter where I go, I gotta be taught by her. It's just, she helps with everything. Everyone is in a different grade, which works great. We just love it. She's a great teacher. We've had a few kids here that were really shy, and now they're having fun with all of us. So if you ever want to come, you should.
I am currently 13 years old, turning 14 this year, and I'm going into the 8th grade. Miss Lisa is very fun, and she's like very adjustable to everyone's needs, and she kind of makes everyone be a part of something, even if they don't know what they want to do yet, and it's like very fun to see how she does that. And she brings us snacks like popsicles during lunchtime. Most of the things we do with Miss Lisa, we can do when we grow up, so kind of getting the experience now helps us in the future. She really tries her best to get you included in something and tries to get you to help. And she really doesn't let anybody be away from the group. And if you're feeling down one day, she's definitely gonna come and check on you if she notices you.
Oh, that's great.
No, I go to Hanger Hall, which is like a private all-girls middle school, so 6th through 8th. I'm going into the 7th grade there, and I love it. It's awesome. There are only like 85 people for 3 grades, so it's very small. But my whole life I've been pretty like out of the loop as far as like the U.S. system goes, because I went to a private like preschool kindergarten place, and then I went to a charter school for 5 years, and now I'm going to a private middle school. So, and it's like an independent school, so you know, they play by their own rules, and it's different, but I really like it. I think that they were a really big part in like my learning journey, and I definitely would not be where I am today without them.
My name's Cassandra Love, and I teach 2nd grade at a public school here in Asheville. And I have a perspective on education that's a little interesting, because I have one child who was homeschooled all the way through school until college, and one child who was homeschooled for a few years, and then he went to a public school, and then he went to a public charter school. And I have taught for years in the homeschool community, and then now also in a public school. So I've gotten to see education from lots of different perspectives. What's the most effective can vary so widely that if you ask me to pick which one works best, I don't think I could tell you that. And the reason is this. So, we homeschooled our kid all the way through. I saw some amazing results from homeschooling, like kids who just really got to dig into a passion that they liked, who got to spend their time really focusing on the kind of learning that worked best for them and the things they were most interested in, and it could be beautiful. And then I saw some kids who did not get the learning that they needed to get. And I can flip that and say the same in public schools. You have some kids who are exposed to things that they would never have gotten exposed to just being in their homes, who get some learn about things that they probably never would have even heard of.
Well, I enjoyed teaching in the public school. I like teaching all levels of students. I think mathematics is needed at all the levels. You got the kids that are going to be going on to college, and you've got the people that are geared towards calculus, and then they're going beyond that. And you got the kids that are going to be maybe working at Lowe's and Home Depot and around town who I see, and they're problem solving, and they're doing mathematics all the time, running a business.
And so whatever order you've marched into, this is a good challenge for us. You're going to end up at your microphone spot. Okay? Should we try that again?
Yeah, let's
and on the flip side, you have some kids who don't thrive in that environment. And I think that there's everything in between. I mean, whether you're talking about a charter school or a public school, I feel like in a lot of ways we need all of those pieces, because not one piece is not perfect for every person. And again, in the homeschooling community that we were involved in for 15 years, there were 2 BIPOC families that I encountered in homeschooling that entire time. And so that is a community here in Asheville that is not invested in the homeschool community, that's not getting that opportunity or those resources. And then on the flip side, when the school that I'm in now as a public school, there are lots of things that I would do differently that everybody involved in it knows aren't perfect. And some of that is because things get handed down from on high, which is no fun. But the flip side of that is the other thing that gets handed down from on high are protections. So every kid has to be able to come to that school. Every kid has to be able to be taught in the least restrictive environment. And that's not necessarily true in all of the other types of schooling environments, whether it's intentional or whether it's resource-based?
Well, I don't know about every school because, again, I am in a charter school, but our day is like pretty laid back, and we get like more broken up breaks during the year. And I feel like that helps a lot with our schedule and how we learn. I kind of wish that there were like different classes or groups that you can break off into to learn specifically about like what you think that you're going to be doing in the future, instead of having to wait until you're like in high school and college to try to figure that out.
I wish that we could do public school in a better way, but that involves resources, and we don't put the right amount of resources toward our public schools. And that hurts, people who don't have, that hurts most the people who don't have other opportunities and resources for education. And the flip side of that is when you have families who do have the resources to provide their children with alternative educations, that does take away funding from the public school. So it's all a give and a take, and it's a hard, tricky situation.
Sometimes I think of a teacher as a conductor of a very long, very slow-moving train, where we have kind of an end destination in mind. I don't know if we're even getting there, but we're just working on that path toward that. So in certain cases, it has to do with creating a safe and comfortable space. It has to do with the connection of just us as human beings and being a strong community, so we get connected with each other, which builds a trusting environment. And so I think like the connection between us is really important, the comfort of the environment, the ability to be comfortable with each other. I think all of those are kind of environmental things that help support them finding their voice.
Jamari, the way I picked his school was based on the way he learns. I put him at Isaac Dixon, which is a school that believes in hands-on learning because that's how he learns. And I made sure that I put him in after-school programs that also fostered that and then encouraged it also at home. Jamari is he's a well-rounded child, so he could do great in any setting, but I try to pick schools that are geared around what he likes. Like he's at Montfort North Star. That's a more hands-on school. It's a smaller population. He could have went to Asheville Middle, but that's more kids, and more kids sometimes creates a different environment that he might not be ready for. Yes, I would have a Jamari in a learning pod, only because it's a smaller group setting, and I know that he's going to be able to get more individual attention versus being in a public school setting. So anytime my kid can get more one-on-one attention that helps him learn or whatnot, I'm all for that.
She gives us a lot of freedom to, make our own decisions and do what we feel like is best for our creations, and I really love that. I think it's great to have structure when you're learning something new, but sometimes you just want like a really free space to be creative, and she definitely did a good job providing that.
The lacking in the education system, I guess, is the focus on happiness of our children, their state of mental health. And what comes with that is also their emotional intelligence and being in touch with how they feel. Because if we're more in touch with how we feel as a human, then we will ultimately be happier, right? Because then the goal is happiness. So for example, if a child is frustrated, instead of just isolating that child and making their feelings not worth anything, talking through that frustration and ultimately problem solving together to get them on the other side of the frustration. And then finding a place where happiness comes back into play and that frustration is then resolved instead of just shut out.
It's important for you to have exposure to different things, because if you're only taught in one way and it's not working, how will you know? And if you're not exposed to different things, then you'll start to internalize and think that you are the problem versus how you're being taught versus what you're exposed to. And then that can set you up in this negative trajectory.
So I think that that's a huge, just a problem, that we're not making that a priority. We have an epidemic of college students, 25% on antidepressants or anxiety medication. And I think that that's because their worth is based on where they're going to school and what their job is going to be. But were they asked, what do you enjoy doing? What are your passions? What are your hobbies? And not only asked that, but guided to find those so that their day-to-day as adults is rooted in what was creating happipiness and joy in their lives, rather than a job that they are basing their lives, their entire lives on, their job that they're not even happy doing. So we're creating these goals that really maybe even aren't ours. They're being put on us by society instead of finding what makes us happy and then creating a business or a life around that. I think that where worth is kind of skewed and not solid.
Yeah, and I have such conflicted feelings about this because one of the reasons I did decide to teach in a public school was because I felt like the kind of teaching that I was doing was not equitable. And I wanted to be in a place where I was able to contribute in a way that everybody could access. And that was important to me, but it's also really hard because it's not the best way I know how to teach, you know? And I think almost every teacher that you talk to would say the same thing, that this environment is not the best environment to teach in. And part of it is because we have to take every kid.
So the difference between the two is at public school there was not much freedom. You were mostly inside. There was barely any breaks and you didn't really have enough time to do much stuff. At Miss Lisa's pod school, there's a lot of freedom, and you can work outside or inside. There are some challenges, but you can get over them easily.
I think I was labeled as the second hardest teacher in the school, which I never quite understood who was number one, and I didn't know why I was that. But kids would thank me. I was very fair. I also, as far as testing and things like that, they could always take a test over if they studied and showed me corrections and that kind of thing. Because students need many chances, I think, and to reach their full potential. I think public schools tend to do that for the most part, from what I see. As far as private schools, I've tutored some students in private schools and charter schools and different other things. And sometimes I see students who don't have any tests, that I work with, and I find that interesting. I think it's important to I'm not a big lover of tests, but it's important to see what students know and make kind of like benchmarks where they are. And that's a tool for school, for the teacher and the administrators to see how things are going. Although I think it's gone too far in one way, I think standardized tests are misused.
So that some families don't have an in the community, some families don't feel comfortable in that community, some families don't have the resources to homeschool their kids or to send their kids to a private school, or even to send their kids to a public charter school, which doesn't charge you to go to, but you have to have the resources to drive your kid there because most of them don't have buses. Some of those schools don't provide services that kids with autism, for example, might need, whereas the public schools are able to provide those services. They have to provide those services because they're mandated by law. So, again, there are pluses and minuses to all of them.
Well, we did homeschooling with Juno for a while, and we still do some homeschooling with her, but she was interested in a kind of like more of a school setting, but not a real, I don't know, my wife, we're not as interested in a full school setting, mainly because we want to be able to allow some flexibility and freedom within her growth, to allow her to be able to choose what she wants to do and not to kind of be stuck in a straight line of organized classes that she feels like she has to take. We want her to be able to explore things, and when she comes across something that she likes, to kind of embrace that and give that room and space to explore. And so Lisa's was a good fit for that. Kind of gives her some nice grounding with like a group of people, which she's really been happy to be in a group of people. But also and also at the same time having some foundational education, but also at the same time giving her like kind of like a wide scope view of what's possible. So kind of, my wife and I, we've always wanted to kind of give that to our girls. You know, it's like something we didn't have when we were younger. You know, it's kind of like if I knew what the options were, if I knew all the options that were available to me when I was her age, you know, who knows what would have happened. So, but anyway, I like the idea that kind of leaves the door open for her to explore.
We have to take kids who come, I have kids who come to my class and are tired, or they're hungry, or they've had something at home, you know, and that always happens. But in public schools, you're talking about generally larger classes. You're talking about kids who have all sorts of needs that are in this same central place. And that can make just the business of teaching them a little bit trickier. So it takes more resources to wrap around those kids who need that extra support and help. And so I think that it's important to give them those resources. At the same time, as a parent who did choose to homeschool my child and chose public and charter schools, I think it's important that we do have a choice about what kind of schooling our kids can have. So I value that choice, and at the same time I worry about how it's eroding funding for the schools that are supposed to be for everyone. And I worry about the effect, the long-term effect that that's going to have. Like, I know every time students choose to go to a different school rather than a public school, that does hurt the funding for that school, and that can hurt the resources, and that has a spiraling effect. And then fewer people want to go to that school, and you know, so it's a tricky question for me, because in my heart I'm like, yes, you need to pick the kind of learning that's best for your child. But I do worry about the kids who are going to get left behind in that if we continue to pull kids out of public schools and reduce the funding, but still have to service kids just with less funding.
I think that's really interesting, and I think it's really important to keep the funding in our public schools. I think the funding, it's a real struggle, and I understand that perspective, really. Yet I think our charter schools are some of the better schools in the area. And so I think, again, we have a big question in all of this. How are we doing? What are we doing? And what is ending up 10 years down the road? Because that's really where my concern lies about what's going on now, is how do these adults grow up, and what skills do they have?
The kids who pull out will be kids who have means and resources readily available. So then you're creating a situation where you only have kids in public schools who don't have the resource, and so it won't balance your classroom. And you want to be able to have a balanced, diverse classroom in order to provide all kids with exposure. What I think needs to happen is maybe more staff on hands, or even better training, because a lot of times in the classroom we're dealing with mental health issues and other things that we're not necessarily equipped for. You're being the school counselor, you're being the mamas, you're being the daddies, you're being the mental health specialist, and you're constantly on. As well, Ms. Lisa has more of a small group setting. She has tons of background knowledge that we might not have in a school setting. And she's able to build this one-on-one relationship and build what the kids need versus being guided by something else.
I'm a big fan of creativity, collaboration, project-centered learning, and technology for youth. And I think we have the power to provide these environments and create better schools for our kids, better school environments, and a better way to learn.
I've gone to a lot of different places. I went to a charter school, I went to a homeschool co-op, I was homeschooled for a long time. I just like a school where I have the option to be inside. I don't like being outside all day. because that was my last school that I went to. We were just kind of outside all day, and I didn't really like it that much. Which I don't like that about public school because you're inside all day. So I want like a medium, which is kind of scary. I've never been to public school really. It's a public middle school. So I'm 7th grade age, but they're gonna put me in 6th grade, so I'm not just thrown into the middle of middle school. But I think that makes sense. It wasn't my decision to be put in 6th grade though, but I'm behind on academics because last year I was in the same class as 8-year-olds and we were all doing sort of the same level, so it was just really easy for me. So I'm gonna need to catch up.
In the public school, when I got somebody from homeschool, it's not to knock homeschool, but they tended to be behind where they needed to be. But I would bring them up. And why that is, it just depends on what their situation was to be separated in a homeschool situation. I don't know. Not everybody wants to be around 1,000 other students in a big building and feel more comfortable in a smaller situation. I noticed right here at this school, this pod, it's interesting. It's a group of homeschool together. It's kind of like a mini school. Which is nice, is if you have good people leading it. So it's all about the teachers and the leaders, of course.
Loving you is a losing game. All I know.
I think alternative education is fine. I think that public funds should go to public schools. And if someone wants to go to a private situation, that's fine, but don't take it from the public schools. Because what's going on right now is teacher pays very low, and keeping career teachers like myself, who's taught 30 years, they're not staying very long.
Our education is in crisis. And so it's essential that we reinvent. And I think there are pieces of what we're doing here that could be applied on a much larger scale.
It's important because one of the biggest resources that you can never get back is your time. And that if you're going to all communities and putting in the time and the work, then one is going to raise their value, one is going to open up, and you're going to see different diverse things and know that, hey, it just gives a ray of hope. And sometimes hope is what you need to keep you going and to keep you pushing forward, because when you're low on resources and somebody decides to offer help or bring things that help lighten the load, then we all grow. And I think that's what's important, because so many children don't have the exposure of like filmmaking camp. They think that filmmaking is like TikTok or something like that, which is great, but there's other means into making it.
I like how all the kids here are like willing to like learn and willing to like be creative, and I really like being in an environment when people just want to like create like awesome movies. And I know a few people who have come here. My brother's here, and then my friend and her brother are here. But the rest of the kids, it's cool because every year that you come back, there's the same kids. So there's new kids plus like kids. So if you meet them, you get to keep getting to know them every summer a little bit more.
I guess as parents, it's very important to like invest in and like come in, not just when things are bad, but like come in all the time to know what your kids are learning and how it's being taught to them. It's important to ask those questions, like those deep questions that you can't get a yes or no answer to, so you can figure out and get a feel for it. And most importantly, always let your kids know they loved. Like that's the biggest portion, and being willing to like clean slate kids. Because sometimes things happen, and instead of it like building up of like, you did that yesterday, you did it the day before, but being able to clean slate and be like, I love you anyway, so that they know that, you can be forgiven and you can keep moving forward.
I go to Hanger Hall. It's like all girls middle school. Yeah, like I think I get like most of my education from my school, but I also like have tutors outside of school.
I would definitely recommend any type of small pod situation. And like also, if this doesn't feel like the right fit, there are organizations out there. There's a lady named Ms. Earl who she runs like a small type of pod situation in the community, and she plays grandma role to everybody, and she's in the school system like, now what does he need to know? And like she comes in the classroom like, he didn't come home with homework yesterday. Where's his stuff at? So I understand that there's a small pod here that is offering great things, but if this doesn't fit your comfort level, that you have to be open to looking at what other things are available.
My experience with Miss Lisa has been really good. I think it's cool that like the freedom that you have here. So I think it's been really good. I like that, like the idea of getting to be creative because you get to do hands-on stuff to learn, and I also like getting to meet new kids, but in a smaller like space.
One of the things I think about a lot about having Ben come to Pod is that in a lot of school systems, they are cutting music and the arts. And I love Pod because Lisa is putting that front and center and infusing it throughout her curriculum, and just really focusing like on math and reading and writing, but also more of the right brain, like creativity and music and intuition. So I feel really thankful that we get to be a part of that.
I feel like public school can kind of institutionalize children and their minds and their viewpoints. So I like what I've seen homeschool do in my son and the other kids very much. So it's a great alternative.
It's like a little family, right? And the kids have to learn how to communicate their needs and collaborate and hash out their differences and conflict resolution. I wish I learned that in school. Those are like amazing skills.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to try out the Waldorf school, but that wasn't a very good fit for me. But I think that Pod here is a great fit for me because it doesn't have as many people, and it's really fun. I like movie making. I think it's fun being able to put together films and then show them to people.
I just think it's really fun. I like being behind camera and capturing the footage.
I like acting and making absolutely chaotic ideas. We are learning how to use the cameras, how to storyboard, and we're learning how to plan the movies before we actually shoot them, because if you don't have a plan, your movie's gonna go completely crazy and it's just not gonna be what you have inside your head, so you need a plan.
Well, you have to get the scene at the right angle. You have to also be very careful because you need to have certain things out of the scene and certain things in the scene, and you also have to be sure the lighting is right.
Yay for Indy! Yay for Max! Yay for Liam!
I'm deeply empowered as a teacher with the freedom to create what these kids need and the freedom to adapt as they adapt, as I adapt, and as our environment adapts. And so the freedom is a huge, important part of what we do. So is the support of the families and the community. It's a collaboration what we do here with the families. So there are generally very engaged parents who, I made the joke, but our school doesn't provide lunch or transportation. It's an engaged families. And so, these kids are all homeschooled, and they're legally in school with their parents, and their parents contract me to create a joint support environment. I think we're technically group tutoring, and some of it's individualized and some of it's with the group, but I think it's that format, the support of the community and the freedom to do the things that we as a community think that are important for us.
A lot of parents have to go to work. Like, we have to be realistic, right? Parents go to work, their children are dropped off at school, and they don't have to worry about what they're doing to entertain their child all day. But if there were more pods like Miss Lisa has, I think that it would be more of an option, you know, and maybe more parents would choose the alternative education if there were more options available for it. But there's a lot of kids, and there's a lot of public schools, and I don't know if we're going to completely transform education to where we take all children out of public schools. That just sounds a little bit unrealistic, but I think that it starts at home, right? Like, the parents need to consciously choose that they want to give their child a different experience than the public school system. So I can't say what's going to work for everybody, and yeah, I don't know.
I'm affiliated with Lisa through my daughter, who goes to Pod and has gone to Pod for a while, 4 years. We have a bit of a unique situation with Amara being like having some more special needs. So Miss Lisa was really just good at working with Amara's tantrums. That's really what it came down to. It's just being able to like deal with Amara when she moves 60 million miles every second. And she switches gears without thinking, and you know, you gotta be like quick and on top of it. Otherwise, before you know it, she's off on something else, and then you try to get her to switch gears again, and you're dealing with like, you know, yeah, a nuclear moment. So Miss Lisa just handled her perfectly. So, and Amara loves her. So that was, you know, not much debate after that.
How to be with other people, how to follow a dream, how to see something and know that that is what she wants and be inspired by. To have those types of skills as an 11-year-old, you know, I don't want her to have to wait until she's in college to be able to hold on to those things. And like, she's already interested in lots of things right now that if she were in public education, we wouldn't really be able to pursue the way that I think she would like to be able to pursue them, given the time. So,
I'm really interested in marine biology and the study of marine life and the ocean in general. Well, there's no like real way to learn about marine biology now, unless for like maybe a week in a science class, and then it's not talked about in school again. And it's like this for multiple jobs. Like, you have to wait until you get to high school and college to start building these skills. And I feel like if we got an early start on that, it would go better in the future. Well, if you're stuck with one community all the time, you're going to be stuck with one view of the world and not get different perspectives, different learning experiences. And if that happens, then the world is going to end up like more divided than it already is. So it's important for kids to get to see other points of view, other art styles, other whatever. Well, there are negatives to everything, but I feel like it doesn't hurt anything by giving kids that opportunity to experience other things and differences.
In this cohesive group and Lisa's skills, she was able to offer something that other people couldn't. So we kind of just dove into the homeschooling pod that Lisa's been offering for years, and we've been here ever since. And next year is going to be our last year, so we're sad, but we're excited because we know that we've given her the tools to excel in other things, and Lisa's helped provide that for her and for us as a family. You know, really supportive.
Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you, never gonna make you cry, never gonna say goodbye, never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. Anyway.
So hi there, my name is Kai. I am the teacher's assistant for Miss Lisa's pod school. Pretty much what I do is just help her keep the structure and help the kids with their schoolwork, and I do some cleaning and stuff in the background and help organize schoolwork and just keep the general flow going so that she's not doing it all on her own. I did not attend Miss Lisa's pod school, but I did do a lot of alternative schooling. So I attended high school at a place called SOLA, which is School of the Living Arts. It's a small like Waldorf school out in Candler. And then I did a lot of alternative schooling, a lot of things similar to what Lisa has going on here, is just having a parent that homeschooled their kids and has a lot of experience and then just shared that to the wider community.
We were homeschooling our child, but felt that it was important for him to spend time with other children. You know, this has been a really great option for us, this pod. Being with children of multi-ages allows my child to both be a leader, but also learn from children who are older than he is. The children are able to work at their own pace. Miss Lisa is wonderful at finding what level your child is at and helping them work to the fullness of their ability.
4 years ago now, I went to Isaac Dixon Elementary School, and she was my tutor while I was there. She's a really good tutor. She helped me catch up a lot on my schoolwork and just get better at reading and writing in general. So we would first, we would do any homework that I had, and then we would go over and read a few books. I like how open she is and how she has it set up to where she teaches.
There's pros and cons to all things, but when you have a lot more people being like the teachers and having a lot more students, you have more potentials for there to be like problems with the staff and stuff, and just not great communication and stuff. And that's something, I mean, you know, we have our struggles and our whatever here too, but I think it's just really easy to just have one person be like, hey, this is my home and this is how it is, and I brought this to you guys. And yeah, but then there's also the side of, you know, we got to go on big school trips sometimes, you know, in a little bit of a bigger environment, which we don't get to do so much here. But I mean, we go to the library every week. There's still things that we get to do that are cool and outside of our regular.
I've met one or two here before, yes. I think for the most part, the kids are fine, not too annoying. I generally don't really like people, but they are fine company, I guess. I feel like some things I would have learned better at the charter school, such as like math and that, but homeschoolers usually work on a different skill set, more of like just learning how to be kind usually. Yeah, we do the basic math and that kind of stuff, but there's much less of it and more just, you know, learning how to kind of interact with people that are not just your own age. That's another thing I didn't really like about the charter school. It was just a classroom of people my age, and I much prefer to be with different age groups.
I think that kids are often consuming media and not as empowered to create media. And I think as we create it, we also learn the power it has. We learn to understand the meaning of an edit, that it can actually create a strong truth or a strong untruth. And I think project-centered learning could really be enhanced in the school. I think technology support could really be enhanced in the school. And I don't know how we can continue accountability while that we can make sure that the kids are really learning while also having freedom to educate as needed. And I think that maybe has something to do with our standardized testing system. And you have a parent willing to put some extra work into that effort of coordination that I think, the mix of some students in need with, teachers that are feeling supported is a successful equation. Scaling that up, I think it could happen anywhere in the nation or the world. Scaling that up to a national level to educate every child sounds complicated. And I think our whole education system's pretty complicated. It's a big system. That's a really slow-moving train, way slower than ours.
My favorite class have to be history, but we don't go on Wednesday anymore because Lila and I have horseback riding on that day. So my favorite class probably would be projects.
Mine's not really actually a class, but I just like hanging out at the library and reading. It's so fun. You can just sit wherever you want to sit, read whatever you want to read.
Probably science is a nice one because we just right now we're just learning about physics and just forces. But my favorite, that would probably have to be 3D projects because we make a lot of stuff, just crafts. We can just do anything in 3D projects pretty much. So 3D projects is probably gonna be my favorite.
Every single day you get to do something new, and it's very fun every single day going to school.
There's a lot of things that everyone looks forward to do, and just most of it is just hanging out with friends, just making new friends, and just having a good time, I would guess.
Very interesting to see what's going on around the country or anywhere, even around the world. It's a tough profession, and there's a lot of answers to reach. I can see these kids here having a good time and learning, and as long as you got the right people helping, then there's other kids you can just sit down in front of a computer screen and they'll learn just fine too. They will. But then there's a lot of others that need a lot of help. And then there's others that don't know how far they can go, and that's where the teacher comes in. Really help them push them on. So.
My name is Aaron Casey. I'm here actually as a camera operator, director of photography on this project. I do have kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old. Obviously my 4-year-old isn't in school just yet, but my 9-year-old has been in public charter education her entire school career so far. And yeah, she struggles with ADHD. So we see some struggles in her current school system now with just adapting to how she works.
These skills are deeply important. The idea of just literally of finding our voice, of feeling empowered to say what we feel is important, is a human challenge. At different levels, I think we all struggle with that. But especially for children, and just, for everybody to get up. So to have a microphone, to amplify your voice, to have the confidence to put your mouth toward the microphone and own the words that you're saying, it's profound. And takes a lot of practice to get there, and a lot of work for the preparation.
I won't say it's been ineffective, because, obviously school, the staff that is there, they're dedicated, but just like any public school situation right now, and I can't speak to other schools specifically, but I will say just talking to other parents and different things like that, it's a stress on all schools right now just to have extra help in the classroom different things like that. Specifically at my daughter's school, even though it's a charter school, classroom sizes are a bit smaller. It should be a little bit more focused. They're struggling just to get teachers to stick around, hang out for more than 1 year.
When kids struggle in school, it leaves parents looking for more resources. And I think for some parents, they wonder if their child is struggling in school, or maybe just struggling with the environment of school, or maybe school is struggling with the child in some cases.
My name is Wo Baza. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, and a father. And I definitely believe in alternative education. Some parents need public school because of either lack of resources to get a private education, or maybe don't have the time or the knowledge or understanding to be homeschool teachers themselves. So a public school environment is a really good place, I feel. Some kids have resources and the parents may not have the time, and a private school may be the best option, or maybe because of religious purposes, you know, someone might go to a private school or a Christian school or a Catholic school. But ultimately, I think the situation should be based off of your personal situation, and you should be making the best decision that's going to help impact your child, honestly. Because I think that's what it's about. A lot of times I think that's what we're missing. As parents, as adults, we act like our children aren't people and don't have their own wants, needs, and understanding of life. And sometimes it's invaluable when they do get those experiences. And that's what I do like about alternative education or homeschooling, where you can kind of create a curriculum based off of your child or your children, and you can kind of cater their education around where you deem fit.
As far as the pod situation, I've never actually experienced it. You know, in the time that I have been around it and been seeing it, you know, it's all very new, but it makes so much sense. You know, I see the value in being in a situation where, you know, as a student, because you know, in the bigger traditional world, it's kind of an idea that you're not as strong as other people, or you're not as smart as other people if you're not getting good grades in school. However, I tend to disagree with that as somebody who struggled through school.
I think more importantly than the type of education that our children have is the dedication that the adults take in order to provide that education for the kids, because that's where the lack is. The kids are just born and then it's like, what's up? What do we do next? You know, and it's up to us to be the guiding forces to help take them to where we feel like they need to be, or what's best for them.
I think it's creating a small community, and that could be anywhere. The first year I did pod school, I had 6 kids, and they were a small group. I could pack them up in the minivan and go on field trips, and that was a really lovely pod school environment. We've had more than that. We've had up to 18 kids where I've had 2 teaching assistants. So I think a real core is to get a community of like-minded families together, to find a teacher or tutor, that you know, it's really that. It's really just getting a few families together to hire a teacher.
It's easy to have any kind of discussion you want about education, but at the end of the day, like I said, at the heart of the discussion is the kids. And not every kid's the same. Not every kid learns the same. Not every kid's going to do the same thing. You know, we aren't building machines. We're building human beings. But
it's just our house. It's, you know, we've turned our driveway into a classroom and opened up our basement for when the weather is cold. Yeah, I took kind of what I feel like these kids are best served by in terms of a collection of classes, and you know, laid out a schedule and just show up and do it.
You know, if you are a parent, like, talk to your kid for one, like a person. Converse with them. If you're a teacher, like, You know, I'm not a professional certified teacher, so, you know, hopefully I'm not out of place by saying this, but, you know, I think understand the environment you're in, understand the resources you have, and then understand what you're trying to implement in these kids and figure out the best way to do that, because sometimes within the system, you have to figure out your own shortcuts, your own loopholes in order to make that happen effectively. And I've interviewed a lot of teachers in my day, and even in this time frame, shooting a documentary, I've interviewed at least 4 or 5. And the consensus is it's the adults. It's the adults that are in the lives of these kids, in the forefront of education. We just, you know, we all need to do better collectively, you know, for your own kids, for others' kids, just for the future in general.
So that's a hard question, but I don't know. I agree with both sides. I think all the funding needs to stay in the public schools so the public school has money to run the programs that they're mandated to run by law. And thankfully they do. They have special ed and they have deeper resources than anything like this could. And at the same time, that system that's for everybody is not working for everybody. It just doesn't work for everybody. And they're learning a lot in the public school system about the need for mental health care and social emotional learning, but we're just beginning to integrate that in the public school system, and that's a big challenge for a lot of kids going on these days. So, again, I think we need a lot of solutions, you know, and a lot of discussion about it, and a lot of different ways to address it. And I'm not sure I know what all those answers are. I'm just really interested in the questions and the conversation. You know, it's asking these questions. It's the other side of learning to me means asking deeper questions, really asking about what is important to learn, how do we retain it, what are the skills that we're trying to teach, and really investigating that, really asking those questions and adapting as our kids need.